anxious to reach our destination, we had travelled, in the English fashion, through the hottest part of the day. They were bird bones, piled in front of a tamarisk tree, and I suppose my fate could be read from the pattern they made in the dust, if only I knew how to see it. This was when I heard the cry, an unholy noise, coming from behind a gathering of dead poplar trunks whose presence did nothing to alleviate the desolate nature of this particular desert plain. I climbed down, looking behind me for Millicent and my sister Elizabeth, but could see neither. Millicent prefers horseback to carts. It is easier for her to stop at will to smoke a Hatterman cigarette. For 5 hours, our path had descended through a dusty basin, its lowest part dotted with tamarisk trees emerging from mounds of blown soil and sand that had accumulated around their roots, and then these dead poplars. Twisted stems of grey-barked saxole clustered between the trunks, and behind this bracken was a girl on her knees, hunched forward and making an extraordinary noise, much like a bray. In no hurry, the carter joined me, and together we stood watching her, he chewing on his splinter of wood, insolent and sly, like all of his type, saying nothing. She looked up at us then. She was about 10 or 11 years old, with a belly as ripe as a hammy melon. The carter simply stared, and before I could speak, she fell forward, her face onto the ground, mouth open as if to eat the dust, and continued her unnerving groans. Behind me I heard the crack of Millicent's horse's hooves on the loose stoned pathway. "She's about to give birth," I said, guessing. Millicent, our appointed leader, representative of the missionary order of the steadfast face, our benefactress, took an age to extract herself from the saddle. Hours of travelling had evidently stiffened her. Insects vibrated around us, drawn out by the slackening heat. I watched Millicent. Nothing could be a more incongruous sight in the desert than she, gracelessly dismounting, with her dominant nose cutting the air, and a large ruby ring on her hand at odds with the rest of her mannish dress. "So young, just a child." Millicent bent down and whispered to the girl in Turkey. Whatever she said provoked a shout, and then came terrible sobs. "It's happening. We'll need forceps, I think." Millicent instructed the carter to bring forward the supply cart and began fumbling through our possessions, looking for the medical kit. As she did, I saw that a group of women, men, and children, a large family perhaps, were coming along the track towards us, pointing and nudging each other with astonishment at us foreign devils, with hair like pig straw, standing as real as anything on their path. Millicent looked up at them, then used her preacher voice. "Stay back and give us room, please." Clearly shocked at her accurate words, repeated in both Chinese and Turkey, they arranged themselves as if positioning for a photograph, only hushing when the girl in the dust leaned forward on hands and knees and screamed loud enough to kill trees. "Eva, support her, quickly!" The crying child, whose swollen stomach was an abomination, looked to me like a dribbling wildcat, and I did not want to touch her. Nonetheless, kneeling in the dust in front of her, I pulled her head onto my knees and attempted to stroke her. I heard Millicent ask an elderly woman for help, but the hag shrank away, as if contact with us would contaminate her. The wretched girl's face buried against my legs, I felt a wetness from her mouth. Possibly she tried to bite, but then, abruptly, she heaved away, back onto the ground. Millicent wrestled with her, turning her over onto her back. The girl let out pitiful cries. "Hold the head," Millicent said. I tried to hold her still, as Millicent opened her knees and pushed them down with her elbows. The material around her groin came off easily. My sister still had not arrived. She too prefers to travel by horseback, so that she can go at whim into the desert to photograph sand. She believes that she can capture sight of him in the grains and dunes. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. These and other words she sings in the peculiar high voice she has acquired since being fully possessed with the forces of religion. I looked round for her, but it was futile. I can still hear those screams now, a hideous, anguished noise, as Millicent pushed her finger into flesh, creating a space for the forceps, until a combination of blood and some other liquid came out, streaking her wrist. "We should not do this," I said. "Let's move her into the town instead. There must be someone more experienced than us." No